I remember when Gary Neville said Chelsea are billion-dollar bottle jobs. The kind of backlash he received within that week, lots of people said that was too harsh. That is the day-to-day descriptions that people in the German media ascribe to players and staff members and teams that they think are not performing, because for them they are being blunt and they don't care about your egos or your softness or whatever it is. Because for them also, if you look at Bayern, it's a fan-owned club. So it is not a matter of some billionaire making decisions and fans are just detached having interactions. Fans see it as their own business that they are running. And so the interaction with the club is much more intense. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Shaft podcast. It's been quite a while since we served you some beer around the table, so we are back. No, it's not been quite a while. Actually, they went on some boring international break, and that's why we were silent for a bit. Now they are back to much more entertaining football. But yeah, on this episode, we are going to have some interesting discussions, not necessarily on match results. Here, we know some people are pretending to be scoring 7-0, catching some useless third grade teams and the rest. But I mean, let's talk about the much more important things that are happening around football that we all need to care about. And so we are going to have those discussions on this episode. And as always, there cannot be a beer parlor without Erasmus. So, Erasmus, welcome. Welcome to the episode.
Yeah, thank you very much. We all hate international breaks,
Except
but it's become what it
if it
is.
were
I
to be you, if you were the players.
think, yes, exactly. I was even going to say that's even part of what like we'll be talking about, and I'm looking forward to talking
Yeah,
about. But I've come to hate international breaks even way more as a
yeah,
Ghanaian, given that even once we come on international break, we are not sure if we are going to find a pitch that we'll be able to play
exactly.
on. The state of Ghanaian football is horrible and it's
It
made
still has a state
horrible by human beings.
because at this point it doesn't, Charlie. It's not even football again. Yeah,
Yes, it's a joke. It's a joke, and it's so scary because the people over there don't care, and it's like I for one maybe I also blame myself in that way, but we've always acted like okay we don't care, we've dissociated from football, from the Black Stars, to the extent that the people who have gone there are just
yeah.
unchecked, like no one even knows who is there and they just do what they want, and we have no power over them because they've been able to ring fence themselves and are actually making a joke of football in Ghana with Ghana football. It's an absolute disgrace that in 2024 a country that was in the World Cup, almost made the World Cup semi-final 10 years ago, cannot be able to host a football game to an international standard. Absolutely incredible. Like we have stars in our teams, we have whatever. It's disgraceful. So I don't enjoy international breaks anymore. I'm sorry.
But I mean,
Spend that time reflecting,
uh,
but come back on the shaft.
we at this point, Ghanaian leadership just had this culture of everything has to get to the absolute worst for it to be the main thing on everyone's lips before you even get the most basic of decent reactions. Because for the captain of the team, when they went on the previous international break, met the vice president of the country, for the captain of the team, and they meet them all the time. So it means that they use that platform for whatever they want. But for that one time, for the captain of the team to speak up and say they need better pitches to train on and to play on, that was not a call to action enough. The captain of the team literally had to plead and say, we need better teams, we need better pitches to play on. Absolutely nothing. And then the next international break, what do you find? We play a game, CAF bans all the pitches and says, look, these pitches are no more up to international standard. And it's like it makes no sense because if you look at and for what's worth, this is not even the stadia. These are just the pitches. Just the Because if you look at, if you start assessing the stadia itself, you just break down in tears. So put the stadia aside, just the pitches, to keep the pitches level, even that could not be done, right? Like that's how crazy
it,
it is.
it's it's mind-boggling. And every time we talk about the Ghanaian issue, for me, it's no longer about
Yeah,
panditry or me trying to get on the shaft, say some nice things. It's passion, and I feel like I'm even going to be disoriented. So I don't want to speak about it.
Charlie.
I hate to speak
Like
about it. We probably have to
I pay
move on
attention to
and
the
talk
media
about things.
conversations, and it's like makes absolutely no sense. If you look at the amount of money we get from FIFA after playing in the World Cup, even just this last World
Yes,
Cup,
yes, I saw
so
that.
like it doesn't make sense. And if you look at the this year's budget, the amount of money that's allocated to the what do you call it, the Ghana Sports Association or the Ghana Football Association, whatever, and people were asking, are these monies even enough to maintain the pitches if you were to maintain them? Yet those are the people they are sacking as scapegoats for not doing a good job. But the Minister of Sports is still there, and they are there touting themselves as progressing the country. Anyway, let's see how things will go, Charlie. But for me, at some point, I just lose hope and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just end up giving up.
No, I've not given up. I don't want to lose hope because I think that losing hope is part of what has made the problem
Yeah,
worse. Because once we don't care, there are some people who say, "Hey, like they don't care. They are not even watching us
yeah,
anymore. Let's do what we want to do." I think that they need to be brought to book. They need to be held accountable, and I think we need to do better as a people because it's an absolute
yeah, yeah.
disgrace.
Anyway, like there are much more pertinent things that we wanted to talk about. Um, that are bigger beyond the Ghanaian scope as well. And we've seen this conversation fester on for quite a long time. Came with the changes in the Champions League format, came with the introduction of some new the Club World Cup format that's going to be played at the end of the season, um, came with a whole lot of things, and you see that day in day out there are new competitions that are being introduced. Competition formats are being lengthened. Players are being subjected to play 3 times a week, 2 times a week, back to back. There are some players like Bruno Fernandes, Rodri, who have almost had little to no rest because they've represented their clubs in almost all the games and their countries. And I think for me, if you look at, I was watching Manchester United's first game of the season, I think, and it was just clear Bruno Fernandes's problem in that game was burnout because he couldn't make simple passes that no matter how shitty that team is, he makes those passes and he makes them and they go like 60% of the way and then it doesn't travel any longer, and that's just somebody who is weak as well or who is tired or exhausted. Those are some of the signs that you see. And so recently the trending topic in the world of football has been whether players are playing too many games and whether or not at some point they need to take radical action in order to get themselves out of such situations. First off, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think players are right to be complaining? Because some pushback that we've heard is for the amount of money they are paid, they shouldn't be complaining. Like everyday workers just get like 12 days or 24 days of leave a year, whatnot, whatnot.
No, I think like they are being paid more money, but they don't gain extra legs. That's at least what I heard someone's response to it, and I think it makes absolute sense because um, football is also a very very intense sport. Like for you to even be present on the pitch, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. So some of the problems which you are now describing, like for example, Bruno Fernandes' clear fatigue within a game, is just one of the things you see, which means that there are a lot of things which you don't see, which is happening behind the scene, and you probably do not get the opportunity to have an insight into it, and therefore will not be able to make the assessment. So when they come out to speak about it, it should tell you that it's quite alarming because they know the kind of money that they earn and they know the kind of reaction that comes. So hearing players speak about it openly is for me makes the situation there a bit. And I do agree that they are playing a lot of games. I think um given the context of what I said previously, that there's a lot of preparation that goes into these games, and given that now there are way more competitions than even previously, and for example, the winter break that we know we used to have has now been taken out, and now there's more Champions League. They are thinking of introducing a Club World Cup within the summer. Even as football fans, like for example, this week, there was Champions League going on. We can't keep up because there's like games happening all of the time. Too many games that you don't even get the opportunity to be able to watch. And I think it's valid to think about it even from the player's perspective, but then also even from the fans' perspective, because what makes these games special is the fact that they don't come around often and we don't get to see them often. Of course, we'll have to watch them as many times, but if they are going to get on the pitch and then the best players are not going to feature, our best players are going to get sidelined and be injured, they are not going to be able to put up their best within the games, then I think that we've just lost the perspective with regards to what we should be enjoying within
Yeah,
football.
and it's quite fascinating because typically the response that people give to the players is to say, "Oh, playing the devil's advocate, fans would love it, or the fans are demanding for it." But to be very honest, like you
Yeah.
said, fans have their lives as well. And football is supposed to give them an escapism. If you overcrowd that space as well, it's difficult for them to keep up. I couldn't keep up with all the Champions League games that were going on. There were some games I saw the scoreline later and I'm like,
No.
huh? Actually, this game was also being played around the same time these ones are being played.
Yeah.
Fans have not so much attention span to be able to pay attention to every single thing. And you're playing this Champions League format in a league system that has a lot of matches going on simultaneously, and you've lumped them between Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, and some have even gone on to as much as Thursday to be playing games, right?
Best days.
Which is like crazy because initially we knew Champions League was what Tuesday, Wednesday, few matches. Europa League,
Yeah, someone said they put Arsenal on Thursday so that they will feel
like
comfortable.
eh, some of you need to be criminalized. Some of the things that some people say just need to be criminalized. But but yeah, you look at that league game for instance, and it's like this is Arsenal, the same Arsenal which has a game on Sunday, playing a Champions League match away
Mm.
on Wednesday, on Thursday. Sorry, they have to travel back, have to train back to back. When are they doing their recovery sessions? When are they actually training and then getting ready for that Sunday match? And then it's a different cycle altogether. And so you look at and domestic cup competitions are yet to come in, and there are two domestic cup competitions that they play in England as well. So you look at all these matches that are coming up, and it's just insane. Like the same time they were playing Champions League matches, some fake team somewhere was scoring 7-0, like somebody and also making their own noise in the media. And like you can't keep up with all these competitions going on around the same time. And so I think even for the claim about the fans enjoying more matches, I think the reality of it, even in the first week of experience, is proven entirely wrong. That for majority of fans of football who
Yeah.
have to interact with it and want to enjoy across board, you really can't do it, and you can't even keep up with the kind of things that are the kind of games that are going on, right? So it's like it's becoming abysmal
Yes.
at this point.
Someone made a comparison and said, in the past, like an old player, so let's say an old player like maybe Clarence Seedorf or Gattuso, um, probably played a set number of minutes over their entire career. A player like Jude Bellingham is already close to
Yeah,
that amount, and
yeah,
he's 23, right? And by the end of his career, he would have played three,
yeah.
four, five times that amount of minutes. So it's just simply clear that players are playing a lot
Like
of football now.
look
And
at the likes of Rio Ferdinand. He tells you that his
yeah,
waist, his knees. Like I'm just trying to paint a picture of the kind of conditions we leave players in at the end of their careers to deal with themselves for the rest of their lives. We see them outside, they are flashy dressed and all that. But it tells you if you climbs up a flight of stairs, his waist and his knees would kill him, right? There's a player whose post I saw recently, I've forgotten the name, plays in I think the Spanish league or the Italian league, who says for every single game that he plays, the subsequent day, he basically can't live in peace because he's in constant pain and is going to retire at the end of the season because he's taking a hip surgery and there's a metal implantation there just for him to play week in, week out. And you look at some of these conditions because the game is physically demanding year in, year out, is becoming much more intense because the expectations are growing and we subject players to much more games. Recently, Barca's coach, Hansi Flick, saying that, yeah,
Hands
he
the Flick.
feels guilty for one of his players' recent injury because he felt like he should have stepped in from him going to the under 21, I think, World Cup or so, or the Olympics, and he didn't because he felt he had just come in new. And now they just started the season and the player is injured. You look at these things and the evidence is clear. Like player fatigue is all over the place. And the fact that now every player you interview, I'm yet to see a single player that will tell you, oh, actually, we are playing less games, so let's play more, or we are fine with what is happening. It should be a warning signal to all of us. And I don't think we are showing that we care enough, especially as fans and even as
Yeah,
commentators of the sport.
I've heard like a lot of fans begin to chime in now, and I think it's good that the players are speaking because they are the ones who are
Yeah,
going through it. So no one is going to say it's for them. And I think usually the response, we spoke about this in the previous episode, if you do remember, where we said it's not even about the players who are earning a lot of money. Like
yeah,
the trickle down effects on some of the players
yeah,
from smaller clubs who do not earn so much, who and if they need to play like similar amount of games or even need to be playing to that same
yeah,
level of intensity because now they are getting more, it's crazy.
yeah,
It's crazy. And apart from the physical effects, there's also the mental effect where Rafael Varane in a recent interview was saying that there was a point where the player was gobbling up
yeah,
the man. Like if someone says something like
bro.
that, like I work, I'm a worker. If there gets to a point where I don't
Yeah,
recognize myself and it's like my job has taken over me, I would be very, very, very
yeah,
much concerned. And even though these guys um, are being paid a lot of money to play football, I think that we need to be able to tamper our expectations. You're already seeing the financial implications of this, like we also spoke about in the previous podcast, because then clubs also need to make more investments to be able to, because now you have players who are injured, who are on
yeah,
rosters. So you either now sign more quality players, pay them more in order to be able to manage the squad. Like, for example, in Chelsea, when they released their UEFA Conference League squad, players like Romeo Lavia, players like Cole Palmer, were excluded
yeah,
from the squad, because we just can't risk them playing those amounts of games. So what that means is that like who would be interested in watching
yeah,
those
yeah,
matches
yeah,
if the
yeah,
best players are not playing, which now means that you do not get the kind of coverage that you need anyway. But then it also forces these clubs to be able to invest or
yeah,
take the risk. And once they are doing so, it means that they need to make more money. And these competitions in themselves, even though they do promise more money, is only doing so marginally. So clubs are not even benefiting outrageously as much. It means that they must pursue more
yeah,
commercial deals. It means that they must increase stadium tickets. And the ripple effects are still on these fans who are now getting to see players who are not in their best of shape. They don't see the best players on the pitches. There's too many games than they can
yeah.
even remember. And at the same time, they are now
Yeah.
paying way more for to go and see those games. I think it's a massive
And
problem that we need to talk about. We
like
need to deal with.
for me, I look at it and I'm like, what exactly do these guys see? Because the leagues, and it's so counterintuitive to especially the increasing strictness on financial spending and the financial ability of clubs to like compensate for some of these increasing demands. because every club now is concerned about financial sustainability and fair play and those rules so that you don't break it and they don't deduct your points and all that. Yet, like you say, there are lots of these clubs with very never-ending lists of injured players whom they can't
Yeah.
play, need to sign new players. They can kick these injured players off their payrolls and their financial what do you call it, statements. But you go in to sign another player, and oh yeah, FPR or whatever it is looking over your back. So it looks like the evolution of the game
Yeah.
is counterintuitive to the very way in which you are trying to make teams financially responsible. So that's why when people make the claim about squad rotation, I don't find it persuasive, because for you to adequately rotate your squad without compromising on results, you need to have a big quality squad. You can't do so if you
Yeah.
are limited on the
Exactly.
financial expenditure every single year, every single season. Yet they tell you, rotate your squad. Yeah, rotate your squad. Play a B team that nobody would want to come and watch, or play a B team that you lose the competition and
Yes.
then your fans are still angry at you, or what exactly. And so it just doesn't make sense with. And what this does is create the perfect conditions where the best players are actively stressed every single game, because now managers know they can't buy all the best players out there or create a big squad filled with quality. So they have to compensate for maybe sometimes academy players who are not that good enough, fringe players, some old players who are just taking low wages so that they can play maybe a season or two. And then in the end, have to stress the very good ones, match in, match out, match in, match out, because you can't rotate that much. And it doesn't make any sense, right? So, I mean, you look at it and you're like, I think there needs to be some serious consideration. I don't know how that is going to happen, but there needs to be some serious consideration around reducing the number of matches, even if it means maintaining the number of competitions and reducing the number of matches it takes to complete those competitions. I think these players will still feel much better off, and at least, or if the worst case is you want squads to grow bigger, increase the squad size, lift off all these ridiculous financial sustainability rules, and give clubs the room to find ways to survive within these hectic schedules. But you don't restrict them and then place a hectic schedule and say, deal with it. You guys are the magicians of the game. Like, those things don't make sense at this point.
Yeah, no, I think we need broader action. Like from the chatter I'm hearing, like the players, so there's a players union that exists, but it's not always been very,
Yeah.
very strong. But it's beginning to get stronger. A lot of players are joining. So they are putting their voices into it. So there's talks of an incoming strike where players are saying that it will get to a point where they will need to strike. And I think this is becoming a
Yeah.
reality. It's unprecedented. It's something that we've never seen before. But I think if it gets to that point, if we allow it to get to that point, then that's absolutely disgraceful. I'm not sure how FIFA and UEFA react to bodies like unions, especially player unions. I'll take it that they do not take kindly
Yeah.
to it, but I think the players have a right to be able to unionize. And I think the more voices that join, the more action that we can see in that regard. Because, like, yeah, a lot of people complain that football is boring these days, and I used to think it was just banter, but like it's real. And like you said, like people have
Yeah.
lives. Like everything is competing for attention these days as fans. So it's not just about cramping it up. I think if the idea of UEFA to make competitions way more exciting, it's probably with the best of intentions, but you don't do that by creating
Yeah.
more games, like expanding World Cup, expanding the
Yeah.
Club World Cup.
Like
Um,
proposing to
yeah, I
make
think there's
World Cup every
legitimate
2 years.
concerns.
Like, bro,
Yes,
calming
yes,
down.
things like that.
Because you look at this logic and it's more like, sometimes, and that's how I felt this week, if you're not able to keep up with the games, you start to feel bad as a fan, because not just that you think you are responsible for keeping up with the games, you think you are not enjoying the games because you don't even know how many games were played, and you can't watch all of them, and you could
Yes,
even catch up
yeah,
on all the highlights and all that, and you feel like, ah,
yes,
my week is ruined because I didn't enjoy the thing I want to enjoy. And it's a thing about thresholds of completion, that if there is more
mm,
volume and you need to complete them and you can't, you struggle. So if I have 20 games to catch up on and I was only able to catch up on five, I feel terrible because I know there's way more I could have explored, but I never get to experience them. If there's only five and I was able to catch up on those five, I feel more happy because I know for this week I've caught up with
Yeah.
every game there is and I'm fine. I'm all informed. I've seen the most exciting goals. What if the 15 that are left had the best goals? What if they had the best assists? What if they had the most controversial penalty saves and I can't follow up on them and I can't catch up on them? So you're actually creating a situation where week in, week out, fans are actually going to start feeling horrible because they can no more catch up with the volume of games that are existing. And I think it completely flips over whatever intention you wanted to gain with this whole create more games system so fans can enjoy. Because the more lack of completion or the feeling of lack of completion you leave within fans, the more dissatisfied you leave us and the more terrible you leave us feeling. So I actually think if we don't take care, this is rather going to be the next point of okay, let's try and catch up with as many matches as possible without enjoying them. Or you just have to go through every week just knowing at the back of your mind that you're never enjoying your sport because you can never catch up with the best games anyway.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think though I'm only taking solace in the fact that um this is the year that they're changing a lot of things. So all of these things are going to be reviewed because even we do the beer parlor. So we are supposed to come and sit here and talk about games. If so we have a bigger
Yeah,
interest in keeping
exactly.
up with
But
these things. Like if we
because
yeah, there's also an
I
argument
look
that
at
yeah, that now
yeah,
there's a market for results and for breaking it down. But guys, look at
like
my eyes. I'm already very,
bro,
very
because
tired. Like
I'm
I
like, yeah, if I wanted us to come and sit here and discuss results, how many Champions League matches have happened this week alone? And how many can we discuss
yes,
in detail or in meaningful measure and break down? We want to be able to enjoy these
yeah,
games and discuss them and break them down and look at the tactical angles and explore the approaches. But
yes. And that's
yeah,
what the shaft
but
is
you
for,
can't do
right?
that now. Like, look, there were like what 12 games over the week, or 13 or 15 over the week. Like, how am I even catching up on all of them? And you can't sit and watch because look, also to be fair, to be able to adequately talk about these games, you need to watch all of them fully so you can appreciate the tactical
Yeah,
awareness of the game and the nuance within the games. You can't just go and watch highlights and think that you can have a meaningful discussion about the game. You and I cannot go and watch 12
yeah.
full matches within a week. And that's just UCL.
No, we can't.
Right? So like, bro,
Maybe we are lazy
Masa,
podcasters.
at this point, this is not lazy podcasters. This is just UEFA being greedy and people trying to hurt players for monetary gain. But I think every stakeholder would
Yeah,
eventually, for the fans, would gradually get to see that this is not just about defending our players, it's also defending our interest in the sport and how much we get to
yeah,
enjoy the sport. And I think every stakeholder, and I like how rapid it's going because sometimes when one aspect of the stakeholders is suffering and the others don't feel they are suffering early, we sometimes leave it to drag on for too long before we start getting a proper reaction because maybe years later
mhm,
before fans start getting the negative end of the stick. But I think with how things are going, fans would
mm,
start, and the trends of the discussions are showing, but they will start seeing the downsides of these clustered game formats very, very quickly and would also be able to call out. Because these days, if you look at, like I see on Facebook, the posts that I'm seeing is like 18 screenshots of match score lines in one post and said, yeah, even that person is tired. The person who is just making a post is tired of analyzing every single game or highlights of every single game and sharing their thoughts. They just put screenshots of 18 score lines and put it there and share it as one post. And you scroll through and you're like, hey, all these games were played this week. Hey, like, bro, like you just feel like you are losing out on a lot. So I think,
I'll tell you one stakeholder that's
yeah,
benefiting though.
which stakeholder?
The people who play football bets.
Beto.
Betway. They are
Ob-
friends.
Obviously, those guys are benefiting, but they are not a stakeholder. We don't care about it. They should not. They should not be part of the discussion.
So that's the livelihood. That's the livelihood of the youth. Too. So
No, I mean like um, those who play the or those who stake the bet. Sure, I'm talking about the betting companies because now, actually, the way in which betting companies make money is the more people lose, the more money they make. Because also the chances of winning are
yeah,
slim. And so if you have more games,
no, but
if you have more games,
when
yeah,
you don't play, they have mm, so because remember games are the fodder for them to be able to have the events, for them to be able to initiate a
yeah,
transaction. So even sometimes during international breaks, people's the activity goes down and they
yeah.
suffer. Because like I don't think it's about winning and losing. Because if you know anything about gambling companies, they don't
Yeah, yeah,
lose.
that's
They
what
make
I'm
sure they
saying.
don't
That
lose.
at this point, it's the companies themselves that are benefiting, not the people who stake the bets, who are like the youth who are
Yeah.
saying it's the
In fact,
livelihood.
there's an entire conversation. We should probably do a video on it. There's an entire conversation as to the influence of gambling companies within football and especially the hierarchy of
Uh,
football. Like s- some of them even illegal, like still coming within the Premier League with illegal sponsorship. And it's crazy. Like football, people just realize that they can make money from
Erasmus, not to
football
cut you,
and therefore are doing
there were
just
18.
anything.
I just counted. There were 18 Champions League matches this week. 18.
Wow.
Come on,
Wow. There's
like.
no way. There's no I can't even keep up with the highlight.
Look, I was just scrolling
Anyway,
through
yes.
the matches. I was like, so there's Wednesday, there's Thursday, there's Friday. That's like the time zones for me. And I'm like, when were some of these matches
Yeah.
played?
Yeah. On top of EFL
Yeah.
matches.
And then they are going to start playing
Anyway.
uh, Europa in the same weeks. They are going to start playing Conference League in the same weeks.
Yeah.
No,
It's
no,
crazy.
this I can't be a fan anymore because
It's
at this
crazy.
point I'll just feel bad. Like this week, I feel so bad for not being able to catch up with the games because typically, like I would catch up with the games, and I'm like, now I don't even know some of the. I didn't even know Aston Villa played a match. Hey,
I'm sure you didn't even know they were in the
bro.
Champions League.
But yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is a really serious conversation though, because I think from all aspects of the game, gradually we start seeing the negative aspects, and I think for those higher up, it's for me. I don't think some. I think sometimes when you allow a decision to mature before you try changing it, it's much more difficult because there's this thing about recency bias. Being comfortable in the way something is working means that you find it so
Yeah.
difficult to change it. And with all these rapid changes that they are making, that is increasing the game schedule. If the decisions that they are making now mature and that becomes the new system of football we are playing the next season, the next 2 seasons, I think it's going to take a much longer time for us to see any drastic reductions or any drastic changes that would actually see things become better for these players, which is my actual fear. Because I think, yeah, eventually they are going to tell you they've heard. They are probably starting a review. They will set up some fancy tribunal to try and come
Mm.
up with a way to make it sustainable. But yeah, the tribunal will take 5 years. And some players' lives will still be on the line throughout those periods as well. Right. And so it's more like, is it better if they listen and now make these adjustments now, right? As opposed to wait for these new changes to fully manifest and see it. And then it's like when you're calling for changes, they're like, yeah, hold on, we are reviewing it. We are coming up with it. Because look at when this new Champions League format was announced. I think 2 seasons ago, right? It's now taking effect.
Yeah.
And it's been in what conversations for about the past 4 seasons or the past 6 seasons, which is what some of the officials say. And so it takes time for some of these reviews to even kick in. and start to be actually implemented.
Yeah.
So for me, that's my biggest fear, really, that players may be head now, and if changes are not done now, and we try to change in the next season, the next two, it might take 6 more, 8 more, 10 more before we see any tangible changes for these players who need them the most.
I share that concern. I share that concern with you. I just hope that we are able to do something
Yeah,
about it, to
yeah,
be very honest. And I just hope they get affected by the
yeah, yeah,
discussion.
yeah. Anyway, moving on to from one big issue to a big-headed person, Vincent Kompany. Like people, people. I mean, he's been in the news like since his appointment to Bayern. And I think he's one person who has weirdly managed to be in the media since he took on the Burnley job, and it's been so fascinating because after he qualified them into the Premier League, got them promoted into the Premier League, and then they came, took their tears, and went relegated. You would think that would be the end of Vincent Company. Even when he was playing with the Burnley team, people would think he shouldn't be getting the kind of media attention he was getting because, bro, this was clearly a relegation team at some point in the season. But people were still talking about his style of play, his approach, his fluid and his boldness, not wanting to adapt to the Premier League whatsoever. He was like he came, he saw, he didn't conquer, but he will still go back. He play the exact same way. And eventually he got the Bayern job. And since then, lots of people have said, look, he didn't deserve the job, or at least it was too much of a risk for Bayern, or why. I think you and I had a discussion about why project managers were now becoming the preference, and why the likes of Company, Maresca were getting the nod over much more experienced candidates like Tuchel, Pochettino, and the rest. Because in nobody's mind would you think you'd sack Thomas Tuchel and go and bring like Vincent Company, or you sack Pochettino and go and bring Enzo Maresca, right? But the structure of clubs had evolved, which made coaching demands new, that they were just needing head coaches and not necessarily football managers who were like bosses and CEOs and signing agents and everything in one. Um, Recently was asked a question about critics. I think for me, I think that first off, I felt the question that was asked to him by the journalist was somehow stupid. But his answer and the composure with which he answered was actually very interesting because if you are a coach and somebody comes to ask you, yeah, people have said you don't deserve the job, what do you have to tell them? Like, who gets up and comes to your face and comes to ask you that? That people said there are only two coaches I've seen who have endured such disrespect so far. The other one was Ten Hag last season when everybody could tell him his mind. But Company was asked the question, and he gave a fascinating answer where he said, look, what is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to give up because people said he can't do it? He has to fight, he has to learn. He might succeed, he might not. But from his background as the son of a Congolese immigrant who was in Brussels, who his chances of even playing in the Premier League or playing for the champions, his national team, was next to none. And so, for that determination to carry him through to the kind of career that he's had, he's not the type of person who will sit and say, yeah, because maybe I think someone says I'm not qualified for this job, or the noise around is that I don't have the pedigree, I don't have the results to prove that I deserve this job, I'm going to quit. No, I'm going to push on, do my job, work hard, grow every single day. And if I succeed, so be it. But if I don't, such is life. It's not everything that goes 100% as you expect it. And I think that response took people by storm because typically you'd expect him to be throw a jab, or you'd expect him to Ten Hag style say he's sorry for you, or or say something that is not sensible. But that answer really stuck to people. And for a lot of people, the value of that answer was not even in his own justification of why he deserved the job. It was how that could apply to every single person's life either in one struggle, in one context, in one journey, in one inspiration. And it made sense regardless of the situation they found themselves in. And I don't know your thoughts on what you've seen about his progress so far and the concerns around him, whether they are still just people blowing hot air or some of these concerns might be genuine.
Yeah, like I think you've covered everything. I think you've covered most of what I have to say. Like I think it was a very touching comment, and it happens a lot in football. Like it happens a lot, very much in
Yeah,
football. Like the way football is structured, it gives opportunity to football. Recently it's become more
yeah,
elitist, but it has always been a working
yeah,
class sport, and the way in which it elevates people to that level. Yeah, and you with Vincent's company, if you are familiar with the story, you know
yeah,
how much this is big for him. And he's not someone that you would have expected to even go into management in the first place. But when he talks about his childhood and he talks about where he came from, this is a side of him that you don't get to see. And these are the stories we love to
yeah,
hear, because some of these other guys walk in there feeling like they already deserve the spot, so they are in there, which is okay. But when you hear stories like these are the things that influence you. Um, and for me, it was quite refreshing to hear that from a coach who is
yeah,
coaching Bayern. Another angle which was spoken about, which they spoke about this from, is also like the
yeah,
minority angle, especially for a club like Bayern. Like, when was the last time you saw a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
black coach
exactly,
as a top
exactly.
club?
Exactly. The closest we had come was
So I
Patrick
personally,
Vieira at Crystal Palace. Right, that's the
yes,
closest we've come.
yes, and even
And
then,
Crystal Palace is like due respect to Crystal Palace fans and all the loyalists of, but the pedigree of Bayern Munich and even the fact that this is a club which is known, quote unquote, recently for the harsh treatment of what do you call it, Sadio Mane. Recently, there have been some claims about this club is structurally not friendly to black people or black colored skin persons and all that. For them to
yeah,
make a strong decision and say, look, we are going for this guy, knowing very well the controversies that would surround that decision because he had just gotten a club relegated, right? That took some
yeah.
balls to
So
do.
one of the points, yes. So I wanted to make a point about the identity. For me, it's a big
Yeah,
win. It's a big win for, because the number of black players who come through the ranks playing good football, who have very good knowledge of the game, we end up with the reputation of being physically present. Uh, because you ask, oh, black player Mike
yeah,
Gleason, oh, strong, he's like a bull. Yeah, actually, oh, strong, like
yeah,
everything is strong, and they are not. Someone like Yaya had a very, 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 very big
yeah,
IQ. He had a very good understanding of space, moments of arriving within the box. I say he's better than Kevin De
yeah,
Bruyne because he could do everything. He could do everything, but he got reduced to
yeah,
his strength. And it goes on that a lot of these guys come through, are very, very talented, but eventually don't get the chance to be able to express their skill and express their value. And I always like to look at the bigger picture, because if we have more black coaches who are more aware, because for example in Wolverhampton, when they had a Portuguese coach, in fact there's, I think they have part Portuguese owners or
yeah,
something like that, and most of the workers were from Portugal. They had an awareness of that
yeah,
environment, and therefore they were able to recruit properly
yeah,
from there. So for example, if we have more black coaches at clubs, they are aware of the culture and they are aware of what kind of talents do we go
yeah,
for from Africa, what kind of talent do we go for from Southern America, and that is what is going to expand the inclusion within the space. So it's a big win, and instead of everyone celebrating, so shame on
yeah,
you if you were part of those who made those kind of, because also because Vincent Company is a very, 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 very
yeah,
good coach. People, it's a very, 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 very good. When he went to Anderlecht, Anderlecht was a big club in Belgium, but they were going off
yeah,
the rails. And he went there, he struggled a bit, but he was able to stabilize the club. And that's how come he got the Burnley job. Burnley with Sean Dyche were relegated for years had a different squad,
Yeah.
different profile of players. He reinvented the club. He reinvented the image of the club. Till today, they are profiting from that reinvention. His talent ID, signing players like or the Bear, signing players like the striker from South Africa, players like
Yeah.
Amduni, like he, the talent ID itself was crazy, and the kind of football they were playing, even in the championship, everyone was
Yeah.
attesting to it that like he's playing like Pep within the championship, and this was just after a few
Yeah.
years of coaching. He said there was a time where you remember his screamer against Leicester
Yeah.
City
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
won
Yeah.
them the
Yeah. Yeah.
title, I think in 20. He said when he was about
Everyone
to
said
shoot, everyone
no,
said,
don't shoot.
"No, don't shoot."
Who the hell are you to tell me
And he
when?
said, "I didn't, yes, I didn't fight through all my career to come here for you to tell me when
Yeah.
to move. This is someone with an elite mentality, but no one recognizes it. The first thing they recognize is his skin. The first thing they recognize is he's relegated a club, amongst a number of things. Burnley didn't sack him. They
No, they
didn't sack him
didn't.
throughout the season. Also, because at the beginning of the season, before the relegation season with Burnley, he was chased by Chelsea,
Yeah.
Tottenham, Manchester United. It should tell you his profile. So I think the only thing Bayern was able to do was identify a diamond within
Yeah.
the rough, and they are going to benefit from it. And me, if he has 10 fans, I'm one. If he has one, I'm one. If he has no fans, it means that I do not exist. I want Vincent Kompany to succeed at Bayern Munich, and I want him to succeed well.
Uh,
And I want people to start recognizing that football knowledge and football industry, it's
yeah.
proven, like we've done it over and over again. Like when football started, it was localized to people that they thought should have the talent, and then they realized that there were some kids playing in the favelas in some of the poorer areas of Brazil who were doing this
Yeah.
excellently. You realize that there were players like Michael Essien and Steve Napier who were coming up within some communities who were gaining a level of toughness. Like Jurgen Klopp shared a story about Luis Diaz, Sadio
Yeah.
Mane, and co, and Mohamed Salah, and he said these players he doesn't play with them because he listens to them and they talk about some of their stories and where they came from, and it's becoming clear and clear that especially
Yeah.
within sports, some of the people who are from the most deprived areas, like and the most underserved areas, develop the best mentality and their approach to
Yeah.
football. There are some of the people who are also able to revolutionize the sport in a way that is able to bring some of these things. So I think in the same way, those are some of the benefits we can also get from the management, and we need to start
Yeah.
pursuing it.
Yeah. For me, I see the football he's playing with Bayern Munich this season, and it's been fantastic. Like he literally led the team to score the highest ever score line in the Champions League, which is scoring 9 goals, right? And this is the same team that Thomas Tuchel was struggling with to make them prolific. This is the same team that Thomas Tuchel was struggling with to help them keep a defensive shape. This is the same team Tuchel was struggling with to help them keep any sort of decent output and performances, to the extent that fans were frustrated, everyone, there was noise around the club. And Bayern has been this club that for a very long time they've existed or they thrive within scenarios where there is not much noise or negative descriptions or comments around their performances. Like they are there, they are dominating the league, everybody's happy, then Bayern is Bayern. But once people start chattering and people start bickering around the club, then all of a sudden, and it's a big club, and the way the German media is, Germany and Spain, people don't understand the language, so they think the English media has the sharpest tongue. The English media are probably the most pompous amongst these three, because in Spain and in Germany, when they catch you, they start when
They
they
are
catch you and they
brutal.
start dissecting. They are the most brutal and they are very blunt about the way in which they say things. I remember when Gary Neville said Chelsea are billion-dollar bottle jobs, the kind of backlash he received within that week, lots of people said that was too harsh. That is the day-to-day descriptions that people in the German media ascribe to players and staff members and teams that they think are not performing, because for them they are being blunt and they don't care about your egos or your softness or whatever it is. Because for them also, if you look at
Mm.
Bayern, it's a fan-owned club. So it is not a matter of some billionaire making decisions and fans are just detached having interactions. Fans see it as their own business that they are running. And so the interaction with the club is much more intense. And so for that club to have a positive aura around it, as at now, with him being in charge, tells you he's definitely doing something right. And that's why it pisses me off that a journalist would get up and give this question relevance, right? Because if you had answered it in the wrong way, you wouldn't be hearing all the applause you are hearing now. People would have teared him apart.
Yeah.
It's just that, as intelligent as he is, he answers it brilliantly. And in fact, at first he was reserved. He said he doesn't want to answer it.
You can see it from the
At first, he says he doesn't want to answer it. He wants to. He has a very deep-seated answer for them, but he doesn't want to answer it. And then he goes ahead and says, "Look, let me just tell you a small bit of it, right?" And for him, it's more like this is not the first time he's faced obstacles that people tell him at the back of his head that you can't do it. This is not the first time. Like the story about him coming from the Brussels and playing on the streets, the story you just recounted where he wants to shoot. He's a defender. He doesn't shoot many times. He doesn't even do shooting drills in training. But he would have probably passed if nobody said anything. But then he everybody sees him
yeah.
trying to shoot. Everybody says no, and he goes like, "I didn't rise through the ranks to captain a team for a 17-year-old to come and tell me when to shoot and when not to shoot. So I'm shooting anyway." And that's
Yes.
till today one of the most iconic goals we use to remember Vincent Kompany, right? And so
A
yeah,
title winning
so you
goal.
look at it and it's like this a person who by definition is always ready to say to hell with whoever is behind there telling me I can't do it. Right. And he just reiterated that exact same story. And I think he's doing wonderful with Bayern so far. Their performances have been great. He's utilizing the
Yeah.
players, he's giving them the attacking fluidity. You look at the reintegration of some of the old guard into it, the way in which he's playing with Thomas Muller now. These are players who were seemingly not
Yeah.
happy under Tuchel, who were being sidelined and annihilated and all that. Sure, he might not have been the first go-to person for Bayern, but for him to be a consideration of Bayern to begin with, and for them to have, because there are so many coaches we know who are considered, and even if club Manchester United were known to have been considering coaches, they went round, and came back and said, "Didier, it's okay. We like Ten Hag like that." All the rest, we couldn't find it. No, we like Ten Hag like that. You think if Bayern wanted an alternative to Company, they couldn't have found him? They would have, right? But at that point, they feel he's the best option for them to have that confidence to go in and make the deal happen. He's somebody they have decent trust in, and he's repaid that trust. And like today, I think yesterday or so, I made a post and I was like, one thing I've come to realize is, yeah, everybody can question the opportunity you have. In fact, you yourself, sometimes when you get huge opportunities, inferiority complex will always come around and
Yes.
you question, am
Yes.
I supposed to be here? Do I deserve to be here? And all that. And at some point, I came to realize, you know what? None of that matters. You just need to prove that you deserve to be here. As to whether you deserve to get the opportunity, no one cares anymore. Do you deserve to be here? Do you deserve to be kept here? Do you deserve to be maintained here? And that's all he's focused on doing. And I think that's the elite mentality you talk about. That he's only focused on proving that no matter all the stories that were published about Bayern going for the last option on the dock and all that, yeah, I'm now the first option on the market. I deserve to be here. They were
Mhm.
even lucky to have me and all that. And I think he's doing a wonderful job. So for me,
Yeah.
it was really inspiring to see that he stood up to some of these people who were doing that.
Yeah, I was saying that my landlord wants to come and fix my stuff in 5 minutes. So he'll be here. So he'll be moving around. It might disrupt the
Ah,
recording. So it's either we pause and continue, or since we've already come to the end of two sections, we can stop it and then record the last one right after he's gone.
yeah.
Or you need to go and
Yeah, also, I have work tomorrow. It's almost 12 a.m. now.
okay. So we can just wrap it up, and then we do the bowling one tomorrow with the
Yeah, with
other
the
stuff
Man
that we
City
want to do.
charges. Okay, okay, sure. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So
You can do bowling and Man
yeah,
City
yeah, yeah,
charges
yeah, yeah.
together. So let me do so that we will cut from here. Let me try and respond. Cool. Yeah, so I definitely agree with you, and it's one of the reasons why I really want to see him succeed, because I think people just lose sight of the fact that he indeed is a very very good manager, and there was a point at which Bayern had a chance to re-sign
Yeah,
Tuchel, and they did it. Yeah, so I think for me, you have admitted just how good he is, and I was talking about before the interruption, before the break, I was talking about how they Bayern had the option to go with a more traditional
yeah,
manager, and Thomas Tuchel, even when he was appointed, the impression that was given out in the media was this is finally like a
yeah,
German maestro who finally had matured, had conquered. Because like when he came onto the scene, like he was well loved and adored by the German media. So this was the epitome of
yeah,
his success, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. So it was quite clear that they wanted to go in a different direction. Bayern had been experimenting with different sporting directors in trying to manage the kind of football that they had, trying to build a good structure around the kind of football
yeah.
that they played. And it was one of the reasons why Thomas Tuchel didn't want to stay, because he was like, don't buy players for me, like that kind of thing. Like you get the people that I want, like you don't get players. And because there was a player called Brian Zaragoza who was signed for Thomas Tuchel, and he never touched the guy because he was like, the guy can't
Yeah, yeah, you can't speak
understand him,
German
or
or
some
something.
funny. Yes, but all was just because he didn't buy the
Yeah,
guy, and it was bought by the sporting directors in view of the kind of football that they wanted to play. So it was quite clear that this is the kind of direction that they wanted to go into. And we've already had a discussion on project managers. And if we look at what Chelsea has done and the things we described around with Enzo Maresca and what they want, then it makes sense why they go for company. And it wasn't like a tokenistic
yeah,
appointment, like how people want it to look like. And I wish more clubs would be bolder in doing some of these things, in appointing some of these people to get into these positions to help. So hats off to
challenge.
him.
Some people were bold and they ended up with Ten Hag. So as for the boldness there, as for the boldness,
It's like you want to shade Man
you know,
United, but we'll definitely we'll come to Man United.
United people, the way they press them my neck in my DMs. Every time they see me shade United, they come around and just come and
Yeah,
jab me. So me too, if I get a chance, I don't forgive them. Like you go and catch Barnsley and score them 7, and you are making noise. Do it to Liverpool.
no, but well, Rashford is
Asa, he
back.
should do it against Liverpool. And yeah, he shouldn't be shooting Barnsley and then be saying that he's back. he's,
Rashford is back.
he's back. Oh. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this has been a good
Anyway,
discussion on some of the surrounding issues or developments in the world of football and soccer. But yeah, I think these are the things that sometimes make the sport more than just what happens on the field, but also about the human. This is what people would term as the human element of the sport. About player welfare, about the mentality of coaching, about some of the identity pathways that can be cleared up with some of these historic appointments, like what Bayern has done with company as well. So I think these discussions are very important. We'll definitely return back to the results sometime, expose all the frauds. When we're able to catch up with 25 games in a week, after we develop our supercomputer AI brains, yeah, we would go back to analyzing results. But
yeah,
yeah, it's been a good one. It's been a good one. Thanks everyone, and see you on the next episode.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.